Gonna do a few mic checks and then we'll start. We're trying to play a little Iwaihime. Playing a little Iwaihime. The visual novel. It's a visual novel. This is from the guy. What's his name? Ryukishi07, I think is the guy's name. The creative mind behind Higarushi. Okay. I'm a little tired, so, you know, I always seem to start visual novels when I'm tired. I want to play them someday when I'm, like, alert and awake. But it's like, when do I have time? It's always night. This is a horror one, so we'll see how this goes. This is just going to be the demo, so I'll probably only play for like a half hour tonight. If the demo is like an hour or too long, we might have multiple sessions. I'll play for as long as I can stay alert for it. And here I figured I'd be the one embarrassed to show up late. So much for playing it cool, huh? I let my enthusiasm get the better of me and arrived too early. I would have felt guilty otherwise, making him wait at some station he'd never visited after the long trip here. I wonder how tall Suzumu is. I couldn't tell from the photo. Suzumu was my distant relative. Like me, he was 16, and he was a junior in high school. Starting this spring, Suzumu would be living here in Susuda, going to the same school as me. He said he'd know where my place was, but normally you pick people up at the station, right? We gotta turn the music down. I even turned it up because I thought it would be low. But nah, it's still too high. Suzumu said he'd know where my place was, but normally you pick people up at the station, right? Still though, that was no excuse for my premature arrival. It sure'd be nice if he got in a little early. He seemed like the punctual type, so I figured he'd be more likely to show up here 5 minutes ahead of time. There's no way he'd show up an hour early. Yet, I had to go and get the brilliant idea to show up over an hour ahead of schedule anyway. I wasn't trying to get carried away, but honestly, it just kind of happened. Killing time at a cheap coffee place would be ideal for this sort of situation. But, well, I didn't want to waste over 300 yen of my meager allowance on a single cup of coffee. So there I was, leaning against a pillar at the ticket gate, looking like a fool as I stared off into space. At first, I was worried about my hair looking funky, because, and I know it said funny, I was worried about my hair looking funky, like I was waiting for my first date or something. But those silly failings passed for a while. Eventually, I found myself simply staring blankly at the bustling crowd of people, my mind as blank and staticky as a TV tuned to a dead channel. No matter how much I checked my phone, it wouldn't change the fact that I still had another 50 minutes or so to go. It'd be nice if I could find a game or something to pass the time, but since I was still recharging MP and Wanya Dora, I couldn't play it for another 12 hours. Ugh, phone games.
駅ってさ、何気に超メジャーでポピュラーな自殺スポットだと思うんだよね。
Personally, I think you'd be surprised how popular train stations are for suicides. All of a sudden, my channel locked onto a single voice speaking amidst the crowd. The voice appeared to be that of a young office worker, all by herself, perhaps talking on the phone.
どんな自殺の名所もさ、結構行くの大変じゃん？
Getting to a really big spot is a journey in itself, isn't it?
覚悟とか度胸とか というか、行くのに時間かかるっていうか。
It takes a lot of courage, resolve, and time.
だって思わない？富士の樹海とかで死ぬ人ってどんだけ頑張ってるわけ？
I mean, have you ever thought of how much work it takes to get all the way out to Aokigahara?
樹海までの行き方調べて、電車乗って、乗り換えて歩いて歩いて。
You gotta look into how to get there, hop on a train, switch line after line, and then walk all the way up there.
普通死ぬためだけにそこまでやるかね？家で首つった方がどんだけ楽かって思うでしょ？
And you do all that just to kill yourself. Don't you think simply hanging yourself at home would be much easier? She was discussing a rather morbid topic with the same energy one would the latest fashions and trends. That said, I had to admit it was fascinating.
首つるのだってそうそう。
So, yeah, this does that weird thing. I hate this. So, alright, like, it started reading the line, but I cut it off because I went back. But the line that is on the screen isn't in here. Like, they should always have the current line in here.
"普通死ぬためだけにそこまでやるかね？家で首つった方がどんだけ楽かって思うでしょ？
And they do all that just to kill themselves. Don't you think it would be much easier to just simply hang yourself at home?" She was discussing a rather morbid topic with the same energy one with the latest fashion and trends. That said, I had to admit it was fascinating.
首つるのだってそうそう簡単じゃないって。首をつるロープかその代わりのものなんてそうそう家にはないよ。
But even hanging yourself isn't all that simple. Most people don't have anything thick enough to do the job just lying around, do they? Now that she mentioned it, I couldn't think of anything at my place that could support my weight. Whoops. Going to a store to get rope or something just to hang yourself seemed like a real fast way to kill the mood. Yeah, even hanging yourself took effort.
自殺ってさ、初恋の男の子に今だって告白するような勢いとタイミングでするもんでしょ？
You need to find both the right incentive and the right timing to kill yourself. Just like confessing to your first crush, wouldn't you say? That was quite the simile. It was in no way a funny topic, yet I giggled. The days of seppuku were long in the past, so most suicides these days were done on impulse. With that, I saw what she was getting at about the train station being suicide hotspots.
駅ってさ、学生でも社会人でも誰もが日常に利用している場所なわけだよね。
Train stations are places everyone used in their day-to-day lives, whether you're young or old.
それでホームで電車を待っている時間ってどんなに忙しい人でも自分を顧みるいい時間になるわけじゃん。
And no matter how busy you are, waiting on the platform for the train to come is a good time to reflect on yourself. And so in those few minutes, waiting for a train, it could cross your mind how easy it would be to just end it all. Train platforms were truly a wonder in a sense. If the thought of killing yourself passed through your head, you wouldn't even need to prepare anything special. All it would take is a few steps towards the edge of the platform. Sure, you'd have to wait for a train first, but those arrive every few minutes during the busy hours. A desire to die and a few minutes of spacing out, that's all you need. And it was all just a hop, skip, and a jump away. Her face is getting intensely scary here. And I'm not on my own stream, so I'm gonna just pull up my stream for Iwaihime. Okay, there we go. It was all just a hop, skip, and a jump away. Desire to die and a few minutes of spacing out, that's all you need.
ね？最高の自殺スポットだと思わない？
That's the best suicide spot there is, don't you think?
コンビニやカラオケくらいに身近でお手軽なカジュアルな自殺スポットだと思うわけ。
It's quick and easy. Just as close as a convenience store. Or a karaoke bar.
疲れたらコンビニで栄養剤買ったり、カラオケでストレス発散したりとかするでしょ？
If you're
駅
tired,
もそれと同じじゃないかなって。
if you're tired, you go buy an energy drink. If you're stressed, you go sing, right? I feel like train stations are kind of the same. So in other words, when you're tired of life, it should be okay to treat the idea of killing yourself almost casually. That's what she was saying. Suicide was supposed to be really tragic and serious, wasn't it? Yet this woman was talking about how death shouldn't be considered that big of a deal. Like cutting your hair short, or for a change of pace, or splurging on a fantastic overseas vacation. In other words, resetting your life should be treated as lightly as all of that. I didn't know if it was because I was sleepy or what, but her words felt like they were awakening something awfully new and fascinating inside of me.
そうだよね。
Yeah, you're right.
自殺って何もとことん追い詰められるまで考えちゃいけないものではないのかも。
Maybe you don't have to be at the end of your rope to consider suicide after all. Like how you might just change up your hairstyle after breakup. Or how you might treat yourself to a makeover or a new purse on a whim. Maybe it really should be treated as casually as that.
自殺って言葉が私は物騒だと思うんだよね。
You know, I think the word suicide is a bit extreme.
確かに。
Yeah.
エステで新陳代謝を改善して新しいお肌に生まれ変わらせるのと全く同じ感じ。
When it really just feels as rejuvenating as having a day at the spa to exfoliate and boost your metabolism.
だから自分殺しなんて物騒な言葉じゃなくて。
So maybe we shouldn't go as far as to say we're killing ourselves.
人生のリピュアとかってどうかな。ね、なんか素敵な響きになったと思わない？
But instead that we're rejuvenating our lives. Don't you think that has a wonderful ring to it?
人生のリピュア。
Rejuvenating our lives. Yes, that did have a nice ring to it. It was only then that I realized the woman had been talking to me. She was leaning against the other side of the pillar. I turned around and locked eyes with her. She was an older woman in her 20s or so. She had stunning long hair and a somewhat compassionate aura around her.
してみると結構驚いちゃうよ。
It's a real eye-opener, I tell you.
ああ、こんなに簡単だったんだって。
It never hits you until then, just how easy it is.
なんで今まで無駄に怖がってたんだろう。バカみたいって。
You feel like such an idiot for having worried over nothing for so long.
したことあるんですか？リピュア。
Have you ever, rejuved yourself?
うん。
She answered yes, as if I had simply asked for the time. Wait a second, if she killed herself, how was she standing there? It felt as though my entire world had been turned upside down. I grew as dizzy as if heaven and earth had been inverted, and the sounds of the crowd around me were deafening, as though someone had turned up the volume on them. Is she gonna off herself? All of a sudden, I found myself at the very front of a crowded platform, beyond where the waiting line would usually start. I wasn't even a full step away from going over the edge. But there was a sea of people behind me. I don't know how bloody this is, but it's probably going to be bloody, so, you know, just fair warning. I don't think, I don't think, like, the whole game is that bad. Like, I'm sure there's bad ends, but, I think it's got, like, romance and stuff in it later. So I don't think it'll be that bad, but we'll see. There was a sea of people behind me. I could be wrong, too. I don't know. I haven't played it yet. It was as packed as a can of sardines. Trying to force them back did no good, and if I tried to push my way through them, they pushed back just as hard.
見て見て。下を。
Go on. Look down. I heard the woman close by, but I couldn't see her. You gonna get pushed? I didn't plan on listening to her, but a push from behind instinctively drew my eyes to my feet. I was stunned by what I found. Where there should have been gravel and train tracks, it was instead a vast blue sky, stretching out as far as the eye could see. Beautiful fields of clouds adorned the light blue sea. It was like I was looking down from a floating island. No, wait, those clouds seem familiar. They were those towering cumulonimbus clouds I'd seen one summer when I was a kid, lying on a field in the park. That's right, there wasn't a sky below me. The sky I had looked up at on that day was under my eyes. And as soon as I realized that, I felt as though gravity had been turned on its head. My chest grew light with the desire to be sucked into the blue ocean. Like that feeling you get when you finally reach the top of a tall slide, after waiting in line for a long time.
おいでよ。
Come along.
でも
But
すっごい簡単であっさりだよ。怖くなんかないから。
there's no need to be scared. It's really easy.
なんでそっちにこだわってたのかバカみたいになるよ。
Trust me, you'll feel like a fool for ever worried about it. The woman appeared before me, holding her hand out. I had no idea how she got there without me noticing. Almost like she'd walked up to me as I was gazing at the sky on that field, inviting me to go with her. And it wasn't just her. There were other women there, her friends or co-workers maybe, along with men in suits. Though it felt like they were inviting me to a barbecue or something, they looked so at a place in suits that it felt kind of silly to me.
でもこれ
But that means jumping off the platform, right? But there was an announcement signaling the arrival of the next train. And yet everyone was coaxing me over to them, their faces plastered with blissful smiles. Almost like they were telling me I'd miss the train if I didn't hurry. But couldn't they hear that screeching of metal against the train tracks, that it was coming? I couldn't jump. If I did, I'd...
ほら、早く。
Come on, hurry.
怖くないから。痛くもないんだよ。
Don't be so scared. It doesn't hurt. Hayako, hurry. You're gonna miss the train. Everyone said as soon as they reached out and waved to me, like telling me I'd miss out on all the fun if I didn't come. But they were asking for the impossible because... hadn't they all been crushed to pieces? Their hands, feet, and heads were all crushed to pieces, weren't they? There was no blue sky, just a blanket of scattered stone, dyed reddish-brown by the elements and rust. Faded metal rails like prison bars reaching out into the distance. It was from there that the dead moaned, pushing through the track ballast as they desperately reached out to me. Their own buried hell beneath the stone, its residents doomed to be crushed under the weight of each passing train, unnoticed by the living day after day. The mutilated dead moaned there in agony as they desperately sought new companions. One of them had become nothing more than a partially crushed head. Another's outstretched hand had fallen right off their arm. An indecipherable jumble of hands and feet squeezed through the stones as they beckoned me over. Chills ran through me head to toe. I turned to back away, but to see if people behind me were pushing back just as hard against me. No, even harder. Yameteo! Stop! I'm gonna fall! However, they were clearly winning. My toes had already stretched out, past the platform, and were trembling in mid-air. I stretched my arms out as far as they could go. I grabbed onto someone behind me and held on for dear life. But the encroaching wall of flesh kept pushing. By this point, my heels were already halfway over the platform. The eyes of the mechanical carnivore gleamed as it grew closer. The train rushed forward, crushing the moaning dead underfoot as it did. The screams of the damned joined in chorus, with the metallic screeching as the train approached with its fierce velocity. It'll swallow me whole if I don't get out of the way. But just then, I found myself dancing in midair. Oh no! At that moment, the stone graveyard of the suffering dead suddenly transformed into that magnificent sky once again. I couldn't tell if I was falling or floating. Congratulations. Everyone stood on that field of grass under the sky, their arms raised, as if in celebration, waiting for me. I fell gently into their clutches. Oh, sorry. Almost like I was light as a feather. Their countless hands caught me comfortably, and then I got crushed, right?
ね、怖くなかったでしょ。
You see, that wasn't so scary now, was it?
ようこそ。
Welcome to the world.
あなたと一緒に来れて嬉しいよ。だって誰にも私の声が届かないんだもの。
We're happy to have you. After all, no one can hear us.
ようこそ私たち側の世界へ。
Welcome to our world. There's no pain or suffering here. Nor sorrow, nor anger, nor irritation or frustration. They're all things of the past here. Of course, the same goes for hope, salvation, resurrection, and rebirth. The transient illusion was all a lie. The sky, clouds, field, and all the people who'd welcomed me all vanished. I was lying on the rails, bound tight by the countless hands. That's right, I was a sacrifice to the steel beneath. My body was gnawed down to nothing by the jaws of the train in the blink of an eye. All my bones broke with a sound akin to the crunching of a candy bar. I heard that with the air remaining on my severed head. Naturally, not even my severed head could escape those stale jaws, of course. Hee. Who would have thought that sound could be music to one's ears? What a pleasant sound, like sinking your incisors into the skin of a crisped, candied apple. It was a bit of a surprise to discover how gratifying it was. To have my body devoured. Deep down I understood it was an evil, detestable temptation. But being so thoroughly gnawed at was a sensation both satisfying and amusing, beyond comprehension. You know how it feels good when you're stretching, and you feel your joints crack? Well, try picturing that, but all over your body, like goosebumps, and it keeps happening over and over again. You might understand. Yeah. I knew, of course, that I shouldn't get into that kind of pleasure. But by that point, my body had been reduced to little more than an assortment of paste and limbs strewn across the rails. Yeah, crushed. What little there was left of me was being dragged under the track bed. A world of crushed limbs and innards. But it seemed that it wasn't enough to kill them. Agonized moans filled the air. Yeah, I understood this was liberation. I didn't have to remember my day-to-day life anymore. I didn't have to keep spacing out and waiting without end. Waiting? Hold on, why did I come to the station again? Oh well, who cared? Doesn't matter anymore. Oh, another train was coming. The wheels of the train crushed hundreds more limbs and torsos, and organs. Yeah. Crunch, crunch, smash, smash. A blinding light gradually intruded into my ecstasy, and all traces of thought came to an end. Poor girl.
大丈夫?
You okay? Tsubakiko panted as she returned to reality. She was leaning against the pillar in front of the station, waiting for Suzumu. That was still the same. But one thing was different. Time had advanced to the point of Suzumu's arrival. Suzumu.
うなされてるみたいな感じだったよ。
You looked like you were in pain just now.
そうだった。
Did I?
寝ぼけてたかも。
Maybe I drifted off. Tsubakiko gave a slight nod as she suggested that perhaps she'd been spacing out for so long she'd had a waking dream.
大丈夫? 少し休む?
You okay now? You want to rest a little bit?
大丈夫。本当、ちょっとぼんやりしてただけ。
I'm fine. I just, spaced out a bit. And, died.
何か悪い夢でも見てた?
Did you have a bad dream or something? not necessarily bad. Dreams can sometimes be so clear that they feel real when you're in them. Yet in most cases, you barely remember what they were about the moment you wake up. Subakiko couldn't put it into words. All she knew was that it was a bizarre, grotesque dream. She couldn't recall anything more than that. But as she stared at Suzumu's face, her mind began to clear up. She could feel herself returning to reality, the daydream being driven away in a flash. Oops. She'd already completely forgotten the fantastical delusion that had taken hold of her. People don't tend to retain every single detail of daydreams or fantasies they have when spacing out, after all. Fantasies like this happen all the time.
ごめんね。ちょっと早く来すぎて、ぼんやりしてるうちに居眠りしちゃってたかも。
Apologies, I got here a little early. Ah. Where'd my mouse cursor go? Oh, there it is. No. I thought I could, enhance individual voices, but... her voice is really quiet. I got here a little early, so I must have dozed off.
どのくらい早く来てたの？
How early we talking?
1時間くらいかな。
About an hour early, maybe?
それはすごいな。僕のためにそんなに早くから待っててくれたの？
Whoa, that's amazing. You waited that long?
別にスズムのためにってわけじゃないわけ。
I wasn't waiting for you or anything, Suzumu.
たまたまちょっと早く来すぎちゃったってだけの話。男子は細かいこと気にしなくていいの。
I wasn't trying to get here. I happened to get here a bit early. That's all. Whatever. Boys aren't supposed to get caught up in that sort of stuff anyway.
キコちゃんは面白いな。
You're funny, Kiko.
田舎者のスズムが駅で迷子になってたら気の毒だなって。
Well, I feel bad if you got lost at the station, country boy like you.
それで早く来て待ってたわけ。Do you understand?
Do you understand? So I came here early and waited. Do you understand? Well, do you?
田舎者。
迷子になったら来るのは早まるんじゃなくて遅くなると思うけどな。
But if I had gotten lost, wouldn't I be running late instead? No.
それで早く来て待ってたわけ。Do you understand?
Do you understand?
それで早く来て待ってたわけ。Do you understand?
If I hadn't got lost, I wouldn't be running late. Wouldn't I be running late instead?
荷物はそれで全部？カバン1個持ってあげるね。
Is that all your bags? I'll take one of them.
あ、大丈夫だよ。重いよ。
No, it's okay. They're heavy.
No problem. うわ
No problem. Whoa. Subakiko snatched Suzumu's travel bag out of his grasp, only to fall to the floor with a thud.
何これ？めちゃくちゃ重いじゃん。
What's in this thing? It weighs like a brick.
だから重いよって言ったのに。
See, I told you.
スズムが軽そうに持ってたからてっきり軽いんだとばっかり。
It didn't look like we were having trouble with it, so I thought it'd be light.
ひょっとしてリュックの方が軽かったりする？そっち持ってあげる。
Is your backpack any lighter? I'll carry that instead.
大丈夫だよ。それにこのカバンより重いよ。
No, it's fine. Besides, the backpack's heavier than that bag.
スズムって結構力持ちなんだね。
Man, Suzumu, you're strong.
さすがは男子。
Well, you are a boy after all.
ああ、そっか。武道をやってるんだったっけ？
Oh, but that's right. Don't you do martial arts?
まあ腕だけは鍛えてるからね。
I just work my arms, really.
昔と変わらず一見細そうなのにずいぶん成長しちゃったね。
You look as thin as you used to, but man, have you grown.
キコちゃんこそ
It's the same with you.
実際に会ったらこんなにも可愛らしく成長してたんで、すっごい驚いちゃった。
I can't believe how cute you've gotten.
そうありがとう。お世辞でも嬉しいかな。
You think so? I'm happy to hear that. Even if you're just, trying to be nice.
お世辞なんかじゃないよ。キコちゃんはすごく可愛らしくなったと思う。
I'm not being nice. I meant every word I said.
ありがとう。まあ私も女子やってるし、キュートになるよう毎日努力してるしね。
Well, I'm a girl, I work hard every day to be cute. Cute as a little button. Thanks. There wasn't a single hint of flattery in Suzumu's compliments, making Subakiko even more embarrassed. Her heart was all aflutter at the thought that Suzumu might turn out to be one heck of a lady killer. His full name was Suzumu Suzuhara. Just like Subakiko, he was 16 years old and in 11th grade. He'd been going to the same school as her starting in April. As per family tradition, he'd start living on his own from this year onward. His large backpack and traveling bag contained his personal effects and the like. That said, he was still a minor, so it wasn't like he'd be living on his own yet. The Haramiyas, Subakiko and her parents, would be taking care of him. Suzumu and Subakiko were relatives. Well, they can't date then, right? However, they were 6 times removed. Okay. So they could hardly be called considered close in terms of blood ties. What's more, the two hadn't seen each other since their great-grandfather's funeral over a decade ago. Their parents had told them how the other was doing, but this was their first time that they'd seen each other in a long time, that they were meeting face-to-face. Blah, blah, blah. This was the first time in so long that they were truly meeting face-to-face. Despite that, they didn't feel like strangers at all. Family ties truly are a curious thing. Even if today had been their first meeting, Subakiko wouldn't have been opposed to welcoming him into the family at all. It was strange, but that was just how close she felt to him.
じゃあ行こっか。
Ready to go?
なんだろう。なんだか騒がしいね。
Hey, what's with the commotion? The station employees were in a fluster. Teenagers exiting out of the station were rambling on about something, their faces pale.
飛び込みらしいよ。それもだ。
何それ。怖い。
Alright, so I guess if we want to make a guess, maybe she's dead and this is her ghost talking to him. And he's gonna find her dead corpse and she'll realize, oh, I'm dead. But he can see me for no reason. Whoa, seriously? That's creepy. It sounds like someone jumped, just now, too.
髪の長い若い OL が電車に飛び込んだって言ってるね。
They're saying an office lady in her 20s jumped straight into the train. An office lady in her 20s with long hair.
怖い。
Oh my god. That's horrible.
気の毒だね。死んで咲く花なんてないのに。
How awful. Death doesn't solve anything.
ピューか。
Maybe she was reliving her life.
リ何
Re what? What was that?
なんだっけ。
Huh? Did I say something? That's odd. For a moment, images of a field under a blue sky and a woman with an unsettling smile flashed through Subakiko's mind. But they faded into the fog of oblivion, just as soon as they'd appeared. After all, it was pointless to remember daydreams.
ここがキコちゃんの住むアパートなんだ。
So this is where you live, huh, Subakiko? My father considered living alone to be a trial of sorts for me. For generations, men of the Suzuhara family had lived independently after reaching a certain age. Only once one had trained your body and mind without relying on others was one considered a full-fledged adult. I'd eagerly awaited this opportunity for as long as I could remember. That was why I studied up on all sorts of things in preparation for this day, so I could live on my own. The thought of finally being able to put all of that to the test excited me beyond words.
はい、これスズムの部屋の鍵。2階の202号室ね。
Here's your key, your room 202 on the second floor.
ありがとう。僕だけの家か。なんだかワクワクするな。
Thanks. My own place now. I'm gonna get pretty excited now. Kiko's family, the Haramiyas. Oh, Kiko being Subakiko. Her full name was Subakiko Harumiya. Anyway, Kiko's family, the Haramiyas, were landlords who owned several apartment complexes in Suzuda. The quaint two-story apartment complex, Resident Harumian 2, was one of those. How much are you paying for your apartment? And I'd be living there. Excuse me. We opened the door to find a futon and a stack of cardboard boxes containing daily necessities. The delivery man had made the rounds.
それにしてもずいぶんいろいろと送ったね。
That's a lot more stuff than I was picturing.
男子なんてせいぜい身の回りのものをカバンに詰め込んだらおしまいかと思ってたな。
I had it in my mind that guys just stuffed all their things into one bag and that was it.
自炊しなさいって言って母さんがフライパンとかお鍋とかも送ってくれたからね。
My mom heard I'd be cooking for myself, so she sent a frying pan and a hot pot.
スズム、自炊なんてできるの？
Wait, Suzumu, you can cook?
多少はできるつもりでいるよ。得意って胸を張れるほどじゃないけどね。
Well, that's the plan, but I wouldn't call myself a master chef or anything.
キコちゃんはお料理とかってできるの？
What about you, Kiko? Can you cook?
こう見えても将来の夢はプリティな花嫁さんだしね。
I may not look like it, but my dream is to be a pretty wife someday.
花嫁修行の一環としてお料理も欠かさずお勉強してるの。
And what wife wouldn't be able to cook?
デリシャスな手料理でスズムを脳殺しちゃうよ。
Hee, I'm gonna blow your mind with some delicious home cooking.
へえ、それはすごいや。今度ぜひご馳走してほしいな。
Sugoya. Wow, that sounds great. I'd like to try some of that cooking.
任せて。私も男子の舌に合うかどうか試したいと思ってたから。
Makasete. Just leave it to me. I want to find out what guys like. So you'd be doing me a favor, too. Kiko nodded along, her eyes gleaming and her smile beaming. It seemed she'd been looking forward to living near a boy her age, what with being in the midst of adolescence and all.
ちなみに隣の201は私の部屋ね。
By the way, I'm in room 201, which is right next door.
壁薄いからね。聞き耳立てて乙女の秘密を聞こうとしたら血祭りにしちゃうからね。
Also, the walls are thin, so if you even dare to eavesdrop and hear any of my little lady secrets, I'll slaughter you. You got it?
しないよ、そんなこと。
I'd never do that. I mentioned it might be easier to unpack with a box cutter and scissors. So Kiko left the room, saying she'd go get them. With the bright and cheery Kiko gone, a somewhat chilly stillness filled the room. The place hadn't been renovated, so there were faint traces of the previous owner's existence still lingering about. Replacing that with my presence and making the place my own would be among the greatest pleasures of living alone. But until then, I'd have to put up with some kind of discomfort. Long black hair gently tickled my cheek. No. It was just some falling dust. I looked up at the ceiling and discovered it was pitch black, like someone had painted the ceiling with soot. It fell gently like a black snow. When I came to my senses, I found myself in a pitch black cloud, filled with that falling snow. I couldn't see a thing. However, I could sense many presences. At that moment, I thought I could hear a female voice reading out something like a sutra. Her voice sounded youthful, but I couldn't see her anywhere. Instead, a giant turquoise object, shaped like a spindle, heavy and covered in rust, came into view. It felt like a voice was coming from within it. Many people were standing around the object. The lights of many candles flickered about, giving the affair a ritualistic atmosphere. Candlelight danced in a cloud of black soot, illuminating the massive conical mass. I could hear the woman reading, no praying, singing inside it. I couldn't help but wonder what in the world that thing was. My eyes were drawn to it. The woman's chants broke into coughs from time to time. My heart wrenched at the sound. I felt like I was going to choke in the cloud of soot as well. Before I knew it, that bizarre object loomed over me like a massive mountain, then swallowed and squashed my consciousness whole. Something's haunting us. Okay, maybe we'll stop here for now. Can we save? Can save. So you can save in the demo. That's good to know. I assume you could probably continue from wherever the demo leaves off. So we just wanted to kind of test this game out. I didn't want to play too long, but we did meet Kiko, Super Kiko. Her family owns, apartment complex. She's leasing out apartment to this boy who is her, 6 times removed relative. Their great-great-great-grandfather or something is their connection. So they're not very related, but they're related. So it's kind of like a kissing cousins thing if they ship, but kind of not. And we haven't met, I think there's a dark-haired girl who's on the promotional art for this. Also, we don't really know who that woman is who offed herself, the 20-year-old. I wonder if that woman's going to be related to the main, I say main girl. Obviously, we've got this girl who, I think under normal circumstances, I'd probably have, I'd probably want her to be the lead. But we haven't met anybody else yet. I'm going to keep an open mind. And because she's, related to him, that's kind of weird. So I might like another character better. Of course, we'll probably find out he's related to whoever else is in this story, too. It seems like ghosts are, haunting them. With, visions of their own demise. Obviously, Suzumiyo, or whatever his name is, the main dude, he had that vision of that, turquoise giant thing that crushed him. And it was, in a village. So I don't know if we're gonna actually physically go to wherever that village is, in the real world, or if that thing is, stuck in the past or stuck in a fictional world. And then, of course, she just had a whole vision of jumping off the train tracks. That seemed way more real than his, which was just, short. But they both kind of ended a similar way. So we'll stop here for now. Next time we pick up, we'll get to see their classmates, which will probably introduce us to, maybe not to that dark-haired girl, because maybe we'll see her when stuff gets real. But I'm sure we'll meet some more, potential love interests in here. We don't even know who our prospective character is, but it'll probably be this Suzumiyo guy, and not Subakiko. Alright, see ya. Bye-bye.